Hello and welcome to your latest episode of the Punting Green, brought to you by oddschecker and PricedUp.bet. This is your Open Championship preview, and I'm your host, George Ellick, delighted to be joined as ever by Ginger Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm good, George. Yeah, absolutely buzzing for this week, yes. I must say. I have the glue ready for my sofa. I'm not going to move all week, and hopefully we can find a winner because it's the final major of the year. And this is the big one for me. I love the Masters, but there's nothing quite like the home open, is there?
Absolutely not. No, I agree. And I think from a kind of betting perspective, it's always an interesting challenge because I feel like quite often with the Masters and the US Open, yes, and the PGA and week to week, you're kind of, the tests aren't that dissimilar. I know that obviously there are different golf courses over in the States, but with the Open Championship, it's a completely different test, yes, of golf. How's your record generally in this event?
I actually have quite a good record in the Open. Yeah, this is one of my better ones. So we'll hopefully carry on the good trend this year as well. But yes, like you said, when we go and take a look at a tournament like the Masters, for example, it's very unusual that you find a shock winner simply due to how unique the golf course is around there. Now, obviously, links is very unique, especially here at Royal Portrush, but with so many variables, this does actually bring a lot of players into play from bigger prices as well that are going to be outplaying their odds. You see a lot of British players, the likes of Marco Penge and Dan Brown, sort of come onto the radar this week, and you won't be surprised to see them score well at some big prices. But I'm quite strong on my team this week, George, so as I always am, I suppose. But let's hope we can have a good result anyway, because I'm really looking forward to it.
I feel like it's an Open tradition like no other. There's always a 500 to 1 shot that you looked at, who you don't bet, who's suddenly there on Friday, and you're like, no, and then they normally fall away. Right, we'll look at this, at the event and your selections in a second. But before we do that, PricedUp.bet have going 10 places, a fifth of 10 places, industry best, joint best on oddschecker. So if you're looking to back players each way, you're not going to go too far wrong by getting on with PricedUp. And if you don't have an account already, make sure you sign up for one. Price boosts across sports every single day. They've got a couple of price boosts that we'll talk through ahead of this event too. So definitely worth signing up for an account. And all the prices that we talk about and the place terms on the show will be priced up. But before we get into the odds, as ever on the Punting Green, we've got to talk about the challenge and the course.
Yes, absolutely.
And we are at Portrush for only the third time ever in the Open Championship, but there was a gap of 60 odd years between the first and the second. But it wasn't too long ago that we were here, 2019, Shane Lowry with a famous victory. So we have relatively, by Open Championship standard, you can only really compare it to St Andrews in terms of being recent course form. I know that you're not always as big on course form as other people in this space, but what kind of a test do you think Portrush is gonna pose to these players this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much as pure a version of the game you're going to find. It's designed into the natural contours of the Northern Irish land. You will not find a much more beautiful golf course than you will Royal Portrush. Anyone who hasn't had a look at the course, I do honestly advise, go and have a look at some pictures. It's amazing to look at, it really is. Extremely tricky, George, from tee to green around here. You need a lot to go right for you as well if you're going to score well. There's playing well, but you still need the right bounces and things like that around here. The general consensus this week as well has been, a lot of people have been suggesting that this is all about short game, chipping and putting, but I couldn't think it any more different myself. I mean, for me, this is all about accuracy. 3 or 4 yards off the fairway around here, you're in deep fescue. Now, not only are you in fescue off the fairways, but if you're finding the fairways around this golf course, we've got pot bunkers everywhere in the middle of the fairways, left side of the fairways. You are not going to be able to advance the ball too far forward from these pot bunkers. So if you find those, you're in deep trouble and probably losing half a shot per hole if you're finding those. So for me, I think not only do you need accuracy from fairway to green, but off the tee, it is essential this week. If you remember as well, when they played here last time, Rory McIlroy hit an iron off the first, if you remember, got out of bounds left and right, and he hit out of bounds on the left-hand side. It's just unheard of. You can't go too far off the fairway here. You're really going to struggle. Like I said, you've actually got danger in the fairway this time as well. Even if you are fortunate enough to find a nice spot on the fairway, you're generally going to be playing towards elevated greens with runoffs on the left, right, front and back. So you need distance control. Accuracy is a massive, massive factor for me this week. That just hasn't been spoken about too much. I do have a few checkpoints for those that want to find their own selections this week. Driver accuracy, iron accuracy. The star one for me though is iron distance control. If you can control the distance with your irons, those runoffs at the back, front, left and right, absolutely irrelevant. You also need a mid to low ball flight here, and you need to have a consistent short game. So anyone who's looking for a player themselves, They are the 5 sort of stats if you want to be taking a look at here.
Really interesting. And it wouldn't be the Open Championship without talking about the weather. And I think a week or so ago, it felt a bit like it was going to be, because of the heat we've had in the UK, it was going to be a baked out course, similar to St Andrews a couple of years ago when Cam Smith won it. But the forecast for today is heavy rain. We have storms. We're recording this at 9:20 on Tuesday. We have storms on Monday. Tomorrow it's set fair, but there are storms forecast Thursday. There's rain around on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So does that come into your thinking at all?
Yeah, it does. It does. Again, a lot of people have perhaps suggested that it's not going to be too much of an issue. But if you're going to be softening these fairways and softening these greens, then expect people to stay out of trouble a little bit more than usual anyway. A lot of the fairways actually lead towards these pot bunkers. So again, you still need to be accurate, but you might find a few shots just coming up that little bit short once that rain has come, and the scoring might get a little bit lower. I think after the first round, with the way the weather's going to go, we're looking at 3, 4, maybe 5 under par, and then it might level out towards the weekend. But look, I think the rain would be welcome this week. It's going to be a bit more of an advantage to play this green on softer conditions, but at the same time, you need to be on the right side of the draw, and that's a tricky part with links golf too.
I was going to say, I mean, we're obviously recording this before the draw is out, and the selections are in, they're locked in and whatever else, but there'll be people out there who haven't had a bet yet watching this by the time the tee times are out. It's often quite hard to predict. You can look at the weather, but because of the way these golf courses are on the, it's unpredictable weather. Often the draw bias doesn't become apparent until basically Friday. Suddenly it becomes very obvious that those who went out at certain times have had a big advantage. Is it worth, if you're having your bets late, splitting your field? Is it worth trying to work out what the draw bias is?
Yeah, I would suggest so, unless you're pretty sure on the players that you fancy already. I suppose the problem is you don't want to start backing too many players and sort of eating into some of your potential profit at the same time. And at the end of the day, the way that Royal Portrush is built, you almost go round the side of the cliffs, the pier, and then you come back in on yourself. So wherever you start, regardless in this tournament, you're going to be playing into wind, downwind, left to right, right to left. So I wouldn't go waiting too long and spreading your stakes too far. But if you want to be patient and find yourself a player that's got the right side of the draw, no arguments there, go for it.
Okay, let's go through the field now. All these prices, as I mentioned, with PricedUp. And they have a couple of boosts too, but the main prices are each way a fifth of 10. Scotty Scheffler is the 5-1 favourite, but he's been boosted on the price boost page to 6-1. So if you fancy Scotty, nowhere better to back him win only than with PricedUp. Rory McIlroy, second favourite at 13-2. He'll be looking to put right what happened back in 2019, missing the cut. John Rahm, incredibly popular this weekend. He's been backed in from kind of 14-1 into 11-1 now. Ludwig Oberg, 18-1. He has been boosted out to 30-1 in the win-only market by PricedUp. Tommy Fleetwood, 18-1. Last year's winner, Xander Schauffele, 18-1. Bryson DeChambeau, 20-1. He's been boosted out to 28-1 in the win-only market. We have Shane Lowry, the winner here. Back in 2019, he's 20-1. Tyrrell Hatton, 20-1. Victor Hovland, 22-1. Bobby McIntyre, 25-1. Colin Morikawa, 28-1. So that's the kind of top 12 or so in the betting. And spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about a couple of those players shortly. But before we do, let's start right at the top, and let's start with the best player in the world, Scotty Scheffler, who's got an okay Open Championship record by anyone's standards, but maybe for him, it looks like the major that he's least suited to at this stage. Yeah.
This could be the major that just takes him the longest to win. Experience is absolutely vital for the most part around here if you don't have necessarily the right shots in the bag. And there's no links golf on the PGA Tour. Obviously, sort of the US Open, they sort of play some similar creative shots, but even then you can just flick out a 60 degree and get up and down from anywhere. I don't think Scheffler's value this week, he's actually the same price here this week as he was at Quail Hollow. Now at Quail Hollow, he had everything in his favour.
Yeah.
Here, he absolutely doesn't. It's going to be a completely different ball game for Scotty Scheffler this week. He's number one from tee to green, obviously. But as the number one player in the world, the best ball striker around, you want to be rewarded for your good shots. That doesn't always happen on links golf courses. So he will miss greens around here. He's so used to getting his 60 degree out as well when you go and play these sort of PGA Tour courses. You just can't do that around here. Even at the Scottish Open last week, there were plenty of opportunities or shot shapes where he needed to be hitting a 8-iron, 7-iron, but he almost went back to his instinct hitting that 60 degree, and then he wasn't leaving himself close enough to the hole, and he was 118th in putting last week. He can't be value on what we've seen here anyway, but he is the best player in the world for a reason, and he won't be too far away, but you don't want to be backing him at this sort of price for this tournament. I'd much prefer Rory this week. He's the one that...
13-2.
He's the box ticker for me, and as you know, I've been his sort of biggest critic all season, but he actually comes in here off a perfect preparation, second in the Scottish Open. That gives him a little something to build on. Nobody knows this course better than Rory McIlroy as well. As a junior, he apparently shot 61 around here off some forward tees, but you've still got to hit the golf shots around here and make the putts. He did get a lot of stick after he won the Grand Slam because his form slightly faded off a little bit. We were all discussing where he's going to get this motivation from, but I really liked what I saw from him last week. Really good ball striking, his irons were superb, and he looks quite comfortable on the putting greens to me as well, and I think that might be where he's more familiar to these greens than most. I think Rory's got a really big chance this week. It's just the price.
Yeah, 13-2. And how about Jon Rahm, a player who his prices in majors kind of running into the US Open were pretty big, and I think people have cottoned on to the fact that his consistent form at Live, but also the way he's playing in the majors recently suggests that he could be knocking on the door against someone with a really good links record too, albeit not yet an Open winner. Yeah,
I mean, over the last 5 years, I think Jon Rahm has the most strokes gained on links golf, bar Xander Schauffele, who of course won it last year. And Jon Rahm's been a really good player this year too. We had a bit of an each way bet to nothing for him last week on the Live Tour, where he finished second at 13-2. He's still yet to finish outside of the top 10 there, and he does have his driver on a string at the moment. I just can't help but feel the Valderrama preparation for Jon Rahm isn't necessarily ideal. I would have preferred Jon Rahm to go to the Scottish Open last week. Obviously he wasn't going to because it was in his home in Spain, but I don't like these sort of preparations for Jon Rahm. When he has played in these events previously, he's either had a week off or he's gone and played somewhere where he's had links golf, and that is when he's performed best. It's slightly different this year, and I'm not totally sure he's quite enough value for me to get stuck into. But again, he's probably going to be a likely player, but I don't like his price, George.
And then one more before we get into your selections. Last year's winner, Xander Schauffele, who's 18-1 with 10 places, and looks like he might be coming back to a bit of form.
Yes, I've had a deep dive into Xander Schauffele's game, went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I heard someone saying that he's hitting the ball a lot higher this year, and that sort of got me thinking a little bit, because you need to hit a lot of greens around here if you're going to score well. Now, before Xander Schauffele's injury, he of course won the Open last year. He was hitting his ball, his driver, at an apex average of 98 feet. You need to be able to hit these sort of lower shots around here. I was watching live at the Open yesterday. They had Matteo Manacero, Thorbjorn Olesen, and they're all hitting their drivers between 78 feet and 88 feet as an apex.
Yeah.
Before his injury, Xander, he was hitting at 98 feet. Since he has come back, he is now hitting it at 115 feet apex. It's really, really high, and you need a lower ball flight around here. He's second, as I said, to Jon Rahm in the strokes gained on the Open sort of courses in the last 5 years, but he had a completely different game then to what he has now. Now, he's that good. He's like Scotty Scheffler. He's not going to be far away, but whether he is quite potent enough to go out and win a tournament right now, I'm not so sure. 115 feet apex on a driver is very, very high if you're sort of not used to looking at it, but you've got to be able to hit those knockdown shots around here, which he has done in the past. We've seen him win. But his game right now does not indicate to me like he is an Open champion winner. I've got a few other players in mind. And I'm deserting Victor Hovland as well, who I have had in mind for this all year long.
In that case, let's talk about Victor now.
Yes.
Because he's someone that I think any regular viewers of the show would have expected you to include.
Yes.
You know, you put him up last weekend in Scotland, and he played okay, just missed out on the places.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting one.
Was it double bogey on Friday?
Double bogey and then bogey.
And then bogey,
three shots. Three shots in, you know, and that's a little bit of a trend at the moment. And I've really had to bite my tongue to leave Victor out. Anyone that knows me knows I will follow Victor Hovland and Tyrrell Hatton off a cliff. But I had one of my biggest bets on him of the year last week, as we mentioned on last week's episode of the Punting Green, and he missed out by one shot. Since then, it's just been a little bit frustrating for me. And do I really want to part with more cash to have more frustration? I really am conscious about not doubling down on Victor this week. Tee to green, though, he's brilliant. It's just that short game. It's not quite right. Expect him to start fast though, George. You know, he wouldn't be a bad idea for perhaps a first round leader shout. But can he maintain that over 4 days? That's been his struggle this year. Same as Colin, same as Tommy Fleetwood. Bryson's short game's just disappeared. Victor is the one that's going to hit plenty of greens, but whether his short game's holding out, he's been very frustrating to watch the last few weeks.
Well, let's get into the selections now. And you mentioned him just there. You've got 2 cliff horses. You're leaving one of them, but you're backing the other one as a headline selection. Tyrrell Hatton.
Yes.
It seems to fit the bill in many ways for this test. 20-1, 10 places with PricedUp. 2.5 points each way for you in your column.
Yeah, this is a big bet for me. Always have big bets, obviously, in the majors anyway, but big fan of Tyrrell Hatton this year. This is the best chance that he's going to have to win a major this year, next year, the following year. I believe this is Tyrrell's time. I know he's been my number one for this for a long time now. It's just been a case of seeing how his season sort of planned out. It's been really good. From tee to green, he is absolutely magnificent. Pure consistency. He doesn't deviate too far offline. You'll hear me often talk about sort of dispersion with shot shapes. Coming to a links golf course, you don't want to be hitting a big slice, well, big fade, should we say, or a big hooky draw. So you're going to want to ignore players like Finau, Wyndham Clark, and because you're flirting with the rough before you've even brought the ball back to the safe spots. Tyrrell Hatton has his driver on an absolute string this year, and he's got the same with his irons as well. A 5-yard fade from his driver and his irons, which is meaning he's hitting loads of greens. If you look at even the likes of Scheffler, even McIlroy, he started hitting a draw now, but people will hit different shot shapes with their driver that they will with their irons. But Tyrrell is so consistent through the bag, he just doesn't miss greens. And that's what enabled him to win the Dubai Desert Classic earlier in the season. And that's what had him at the top of the leaderboard in the Masters after the first few rounds, and the same with the US Open. He had a bad 3rd round in the Masters and a bad final round in the US Open, but he still finished tied 14th and tied 4th. His distance control as well, I mentioned this as being one of the star stats, one of my personal intricate details that I think is really important this week. The fact he strikes his irons so well means he is really good with his distance control. This was what Tiger was so good at and why he wouldn't miss so many greens. Because if your distance control and ball striking is so good, you have 150 yards to the green and you hit it 150 yards, you're not flirting with those roll-offs on the front of the green, you're not messing with anything at the back or the left or right, and even if so, his short game is just absolutely superb. Soft ground, hard ground, links golf, Valderrama, you go wherever you like, he is superb with his short game. So you then ask, well, what's his record been like on links golf courses? Well, his best open finish was actually here back at Royal Portrush. Now, he's a completely different golfer now, and he has gone on to win 3 Alfred Dunhill Links Championships, which is incredible correlating form for this sort of tournament. He has done very little this wrong. If you look at through a lot of the players at the top of the market, even if they've had good results, Tyrrell is the one player that's been ever so consistent from January to now, and I think this is his time to strike. I'd be really disappointed if he wasn't majorly contesting this week. I really would.
Any of the same concerns you've got with Rama's preparation, that he was out in Valderrama last weekend?
See, this is the interesting thing, because I knew when I said that it was slightly contradicting with the fact that Tyrrell went and played Valderrama, but it's sort of different with Tyrrell Hatton because he's very much a course management sort of golfer, where John Rahm tries to overpower a few dog legs, and that's where he made a couple of double bogeys here and there. So not as much of a concern with Tyrrell with regards to that this week. And I know he is a superb links golf player. He's really good, consistent. Like I said, those Alfred Dunhill Links Championships are just gold. They're played over various different golf courses. Really consistent player. I don't see why you would want to back anyone but Tyrrell Hatton as your number one for this week.
Good stuff. Tyrrell Hatton, number one. Why would you want to back anyone else?
Yes.
Asked Joe. But you are backing a couple of others.
Yes.
Just thought it was your number one. Ludwig Oberg, 18-1, 10 places with PricedUp. As I say, boost up to 30-1 win only.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's good value because he has been a little bit volatile this year with his short game. His chipping and putting hasn't necessarily been up to scratch. But again, tee to green, he's been brilliant. He does lack a little bit of experience with regards to links golf, but he has all of the attributes I like, again, for this sort of golf course. Very similar to Tyrrell Hatton. Very small fade, hits lots of greens. Now, the general consensus has been as well that his putting's been rather poor, and it has. The numbers will tell you this. But he's still competing whilst not being in his best form, and that is a really good sign of a player coming to form. I'm more positive about how good he has been from tee to green than I am concerned about his short game. Hit the greens and you can score. If you miss the greens, then you're trying to hold on to your score. For me, green in regulations this week and accuracy is more important than the short game. That will fix itself in sort of level itself out over the 4 days. Ludwig Aberg will score well here. And at some point, he's going to win one of these majors, and he won't be a 20-1, 25-1 shot. He's going to be 6, 7, 8-1 behind Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. He's a superstar in waiting.
Yeah.
Very good distance control. Him and Tyrrell, very similar games. Can't leave him out despite that poor putting in recent weeks.
Good stuff. Sepp Straka next on the list. He's 35-1 with 10 places. A player that I've backed as well. Terrible news for you. But, I backed him in, I think, 2 of the 3 majors already this season. He's a serial winner on the PGA Tour this season, but he's got 3 missed cuts in a row. But a surprisingly good links record.
Yeah, he's the player to me that doesn't do too much wrong. Even when he misses cuts, it's not like he scores poorly and he's slicing his driver and he's hooking his irons and missing putts. He's a very consistent sort of golfer. So it's either there or it's not. As simple as that. He's not a massive hitter. But he is now up to world number 8. You don't get that without being a consistent player. He's won twice this year, which makes it 4 now, I think, on the PGA Tour in total. And he is probably the player that you're going to see. I would suggest Sepp Straka is going to be one of the best back players this week, because a lot of people like to look into stats. I do like to look at them. They give you sort of an inkling of an idea of where they're at, I suppose, with their game. And you can see why. Strokes gained total, 3rd. Strokes gained approach, 4th. Gaining shots from everywhere off the tee. And then his approach play has been brilliant. From 150 yards in, he's 8th. From 125 yards in, he's 7th. From 100 yards in, he's 3rd. And then from 75 yards to 100, he's 6th. He's also 7th in putting. So he's a very tempting player on the stat basis. And again, he fits that bill. He doesn't hit this big draw. He doesn't deviate too far offline. He plods his way around the golf course. And that is how he's managed to get himself up to world number 8. He's not a flashy player. Very similar to Keegan Bradley, for example. Doesn't do too much wrong. He's now world number 6. Consistency will win you golf tournaments. He has been a consistent player. Yes, he's missed a few cuts. But in general, there's not a lot wrong with his game. I don't mind that he's coming in here after a little bit of bad form. He loves links golf.
Played well last weekend as well.
Yeah, exactly. He played well last week. And he's got that links form behind Brian Harman from a few years ago when he won the Open. I think I put him at that year about 200-1, and since then he's just skyrocketed. So, look, I think he's a really solid. The fact that we've got Tyrrell Hatton and Ludwig, I think Sepp Straka is a really good addition to any squad to give you that little bit of balance. That's how I see him anyway. And
the 4th and final selection, a player who went very, very close to winning his second major at Augusta, just being pipped in the playoff by Rory McIlroy.
Yes, yeah.
Again, showed some good form last weekend. Justin Rose, 40-1.
Yeah, really big fan of Justin. He's been really well back this week as well. He actually started off at around 100-1 pretty much in most firms, and he is now generally 33-1 to 50-1. But take advantage of PricedUp, because like you said, you're getting pretty much 10 places here, and when you've got the Open, take your places before you get your prices. Really, really good player, always has been. He won the US Open in 2013. Hasn't won a major since then, but he's won a lot of big events. Of course, even the Olympics, he's played well in events like that. He was second, obviously, in the Masters this year to Rory McIlroy. He was second previously to Sergio Garcia. I think there's one more big tournament in Justin Rose before he retires. Could be this week. Struck the ball really well all week last week at the Renaissance Club. Couldn't hold a putt in round 1, 2 or 3. On the back 9 of the final round last week, he absolutely just hold everything from everywhere. Perfect time, perfect preparation. Just like his game for this week. It could be the fact that Rory McIlroy stole the Masters off Justin Rose. Perhaps Justin Rose can steal the Open from Rory McIlroy at Royal Portrush. I think he's a really good, solid option this week. And I like that squad. I think that's a real good balanced squad for the week.
Yeah, and those who look back at the 2019 leaderboard will see Rose tied 20th. But he actually shot, he was 9 under going into the last day and shot +8.
Yeah, it doesn't concern me.
It's pretty positive, isn't it?
Yeah.
3 good rounds, and the weather on that final day was horrendous. So.
He's a very professional player as well. I don't mind if he's in contention in the last round or not too far behind, like we saw in the Masters. He will play himself into the tournament, and yeah, I'm not surprised that bookies aren't taking too many chances with him anyway.
Interesting. So the final 4 selections there that we have got are Tyrrell Hatton at 20-1, Ludwig Aberg 18-1, boosted to 30-1 win only. Sepp Straka 50-1, Justin Rose. Sorry, Sepp Straka, I should say 35-1, Justin Rose 40-1. Were there any others that just missed out on the squad? Can you show your working a bit so that when they win we can say?
I try not to, because it does make you. I don't like the after booms and things like that, and I try and keep it concise. But I do have a bet for the top 10 finish, George. If that helps.
Yeah, perfect.
Captain America, George. It's not long now until the Ryder Cup. I mentioned how Sepp Straka has played himself up to world number 8. I mean, Keegan Bradley, I think he's world number 7 now himself. He's been excellent. He stole a tournament off Tommy Fleetwood this year. He doesn't, again, he's not a very flashy player. He'll plod his way around here and put a score together. It's just whether he holds enough putts to put himself in contention. But you can get 7-1, I believe, with PricedUp for a top 10 finish. That is really, really good value. I don't think he's going to win the event. So, again, bit my tongue, kept him out of the squad. But I'm happy to play him at a 7-1 for a top 10 finish because I can't see him doing too much wrong around here.
Excellent. I'm going to give you one now.
Yeah, please, let's do it.
Because there's no seconds. And I, you know, as much as I like listening to you, I try and find my own.
Of course,
my own.
You have to.
And there's a player that I've backed that I'm surprised you haven't put up because you backed him a couple of times, and that is Cornwall's very own Harry Hall.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, he was on my long shortlist, if you like, because it was a long shortlist this week. But yeah, like you said, I've been backing Harry Hall quite a lot this year. He actually played quite well last week in matches as well. And again, he's an English player, really good short game as well, which you'd like a bit of consistency around here. Yeah, wouldn't argue George, to be honest.
Thank you. Is there anything I should know about his shot shape or anything like that?
No. He hits a draw and it's very consistent. That's all he does. Draw again. Finds fairways, finds greens, and seems to make putts, which is sort of bringing him up the world rankings a little bit. Maybe a tournament or two, maybe a major or two too soon for him, perhaps. But at the same time, you know, I'm gonna stamp my foot if he wins this week, and I haven't got anything with him. So there's a few players like that this week, but yeah, I wouldn't put you off, George. Anyway.
Yeah, Harry Hall, one for me there. There we have it. That brings this episode of the Punting Green to a close. Thank you very much for taking the time at home to watch or listen to this. Make sure you sign up to PricedUp.bet if you haven't already got an account. As I say, 10 places for the Open Championship this weekend. And oddschecker have you covered for all of your fixed odds betting needs as well. Best prices, bookie offers, free bets. Joe's tips there. You can find Nar Lyons' tips up on there too, so make sure you go and check that out. But most importantly, enjoy the golf this weekend. Hopefully you put the winner up at some point during this. Hopefully it's Harry Hall. And we'll see you again next week. Please do ensure that you're gambling responsibly.